China has always been a closed country. After World War II, the mainland of China tightened its control of the economy and trade. In 1978 and onwards, China became a more market-driven economy with great success. From 1990, the state has opened up for wider globalization. However, the political control remains firmly held.
At present time, Hong Kong is a part of China. However, the rule was handed over to China from the United Kingdom no earlier than 1997, after having been occupied by the UK since 1841. In 1997, it signed an agreement called the One Country, Two System formula with the Chinese mainland. Hong Kong could keep much of its Western practices and in that sense keep the established contact with international companies. In comparison to the Chinese mainland, the Hong Kong economy is defined as a free market and has for a longer time been more open to international organizations.
There are three factors that are seen as the main pillars to describe a business system in a country or a region. The fiscal institutions, like the political environment and the educational system, the informal institutions, like social or national values, and the formal institutions, like laws and regulations.
It is discussed that corporations need to innovate in order to stay competitive and to survive. In order for this to happen, it's necessary to have an accepting climate towards innovation and not seeing it as a risk. Innovation is a way to measure how effective a country's business system is.
The research question we have chosen to work with is, how does the innovation ability differ between China and Hong Kong, given their business systems?
So, how has this been made? This study has its starting point in the three factors: physical institutions, informal institutions, and formal institutions. These factors are accordingly seen as three dimensions to describe a business system and will serve as a comprehensive platform for data collections and analysis. Further, the study will focus on innovation ability and how that relates to the three factors.
Before 2004, the Chinese government only allowed foreign investment in some specific sectors and with rigid industrial restrictions, such as prohibition of import of several goods. The promotion law that came into force in 2004 opened up the private sector in China and eased the future development of small and medium-sized enterprises. Hong Kong became a special administrative region of the People's Republic of China in 1997. From then on, Hong Kong has adopted the One Country, Two System policy. The policy implies that Hong Kong have the authority of administration and legislation, but, for example, not full control over the election of the territory's chief executive. Shanghai is the best performing city in all three categories in the PISA tests. The test results from the rest of mainland China are not published, though, due to restrictions from the Chinese government. China publishes second most scientific papers in the world after the US. China has 9 universities of the Times Higher Education top 50 ranking and 2 out of the top 10. Hong Kong scores at second place in the world in the categories reading and science and third place in mathematics in the PISA tests. Hong Kong also publishes many scientific papers and has 6 universities of the Times Higher Education top 50 ranking and 2 out of the top 10.
China has relatively strong norms and a low tolerance on deviant behavior due to the fact that the Chinese people don't like uncertainty. When this is compared to Hong Kong, we found a difference since Hong Kong has relatively loose norms and a high tolerance on risks and different behaviors. Due to traditions, both the Hong Kong and Chinese business environment is dominated by masculinity. China is more uncomfortable with risks. Sometimes that could be associated with entrepreneurs and innovation. In contrast, Hong Kong is more open for new cultures and influences. Power distance is a term that measures how much a less powerful individual expects and accepts the unequally distributed power in the society. Another measurement is called intellectual autonomy, which marks the independent thinking of people. China has a higher power distance and a lower intellectual autonomy compared to Hong Kong. Ever since China decided to open its door in the late 70s, the country has been adopting laws from the Western countries and upgrading their own laws to a Western standard. However, this development has been both due to international political pressure but it's also a result of an internal desire to develop China's market economy. China is ranked as number 76 in the World Justice Project Rule of Law Index, listing of how the rule of law is experienced in everyday life for people in the countries. China is below the average for the Asia-Pacific area regarding most of the parameters. The UK introduced the legal system in Hong Kong during the domination of the region, which contributed for Hong Kong to build a strong base for companies to prosper. After 1997, the laws basically remain the same and the legal system of the region is still separated from China's. The rule of law in Hong Kong is now ranked as number 16 in the world according to the study done by the World Justice Project.
As a result of the earlier absence of Western law, China was consequently isolated from the modern patent law, and the country was late in implementing open and international practices. When China became a member of WTO in 2001, they have synchronized its intellectual property rights system with international standard. Therefore, China is now experiencing a rapid evolution regarding patent law in order to match the patent regulations of the Western countries. Before 1997, when Hong Kong was regulated by the United Kingdom, a patent filed in Hong Kong was also valid within the European Union and remained within the time frame for the European Union patent law. This has changed in 1997. Nowadays, a patent filed in Hong Kong is only valid in Hong Kong and not even in the mainland of China. The more liberal political environment in Hong Kong facilitates the number of innovations as a consequence of the more favorable general business landscape. Although the deregulations in China affecting the private actors in the market have, and most certainly will, increase the innovation capabilities in the country.
Education is seen as a critical success factor in life for both Hong Kong and Chinese inhabitants. Therefore, it's very hard to point out any significant differences. Worth remembering, though, is that China has about 187 times more inhabitants than Hong Kong, but they still have equally many top-ranked universities.
The Chinese business system tends to have a higher degree of power distance than in Hong Kong. This could potentially inhibit knowledge management between companies, which could affect internal innovation ability. The degree of intellectual autonomy is similar in both China and Hong Kong, but still it's significantly lower than in the Western countries, which could be an indicator of lower innovation ability in the Asian business system.
In terms of uncertainty, China has stricter norms and are not especially willing to take on risk. This might also affect the attitude towards entrepreneurship and innovation. China also puts less value on personal improvement and does not encourage to the same extent as Hong Kong does. This could create barriers within the Chinese business system with regard to willingness to stand out.
Hong Kong has worked with incentives for new company establishment due to the British influences. The laws of China are not as adapted to the Western climate, and therefore it is harder for international companies to settle.
China seeks to decrease barriers of entry for foreign innovators when it comes to patent law, this giving room for innovation in their business system, while it can be perceived as less advantageous applying for a patent in Hong Kong than it was during the British governance. As can be seen from the collected data and subsequent comparison within each of the categories, Hong Kong clearly supports innovation to a greater extent than the mainland China. Generally speaking, Hong Kong has exploited a more open form of market structure compared to the mainland China. The effects of this on the three dimensions of a business system are fundamentally the reason to their superiority and thus the major conclusion of this report.
China has always been a closed country. After World War II, the mainland of China tightened its control of the economy and trade. In 1978,